Hi, my name is Mike Baio with Bangert. In this session, we're going to talk about Sage Intacct Payroll and how you can do adjustments during your pay period check processing, along with adjustments as far as updating balances, year-to-date totals, putting in beginning balances in the system, when and how you can do these adjustments depending on what phase of the payroll process you're in and what you want the effects to be. So what we're going to do is go through a couple different scenarios here today. First one's going to be, how do we make adjustments before our payroll checks are approved? Then we'll go through, all right, well, what happens if I've approved the checks already? What options do I have for adjustments then before I post those checks? And then when does it make sense to use the import adjustments process in the system? And then we'll also go in at the end and show you how to adjust your PTO balances if needed. So first we're going to go into my sample company. I'm going to be in Timberline General Construction, and I'm going to go into payroll. And for this presentation, we're going to just quickly generate some salary payroll and work on adjusting that individual's time. Okay, so let's go in and just get a check processed here. So we're going to go and we'll go into Setup Checks. And we'll just go process an auto salary. So I'll click generate checks. I normally wouldn't select an employee, but I'm going to select Doug here. And I think he already has a week for this week. So we're going to do the 16th and I'll say generate checks. Okay, so at this stage, we have a check generated. So if you had time entries imported in and you approved your time entries, this would also be the same stage where you've generated or processed your checks for the initial run. Then you come into here and take a look. Now, adjusting at this stage is going to be your most flexible, easiest to do. You could take it to the extreme of simply, everything's messed up on this check, or we need to adjust it. The time came in all wrong. You could simply click on that check here, and over under actions, because it's not approved yet, I can simply delete that check. When I delete it, if there's time in there, if this is an hourly employee, it's going to give you an option to set the time back to pending so that you can go back in and modify the time in the time card, or get the whole thing out and delete everything. There's no records in the system at that point. You could start fresh. Okay. So that's going to be your extreme easiest. Let's just delete it and do it again. So in this case, we're going to go in and say, there's a few things we need to edit on this, calculated wrong, or adjustments need to be made. So all you need to do in this stage, because we haven't approved this check yet, so you'll notice here it's not approved yet. So I can do a lot of things here. I can recalculate this check. So if I realize, his withholding tax was incorrect, he's got the wrong filing status, we forgot to add a new deduction onto his record. Well, all of that you can see in the detail here, and you're going to have the ability to go back into the employee file, correct the setup, and then simply click on here and recalculate as many times as you need. Okay. And you can do it for the whole check run, or you can select the individuals that you want to recalculate on. So let's take a look at the check. So you can always go into the details by clicking on the name. And you'll notice here you have, all the information for that check. You'll have the salary or hourly pay, deductions, employee deductions. You'll have the employee taxes, and then you'll have the employer benefits, paid benefits, and the employer taxes as well. So you have some different options here as far as what you can edit. So if I go in as far as the time goes, now I only have a salary individual here, so you don't see any hours, but if you had an hourly individual, you'll be able to edit either the hours or the rate, okay? So how you know if you can edit the individual lines is expand it open. So if I hit the down arrow here, if it was an hourly, I would have all the time entries here in detail and the dates. And you can come into here and you just click on this View Details button. And when I do that, it opens up that line's information. So here's where it would show an hourly employee, it would show the hours and the amount. If you need to edit or adjust that, you can just come right here on this pencil and you can click the pencil button. So in this case, it's salary, so I just have the option to edit the salary. If it was an hourly, you could change the hours, and then you can also override the rate. So this is a nice scenario where you know what it's supposed to be. You want to make it right. We'll go back and fix it in the employee record for next week going forward, or if this is a one-time thing, we're going to give them a salary of $1,800 for this week. And what's nice too is you'll see notes on here, so you can always type in a note, and I kind of canceled out of here on accident. So let's go back in. So to get back in, I'll go to that pay group. It was salary pay, and the week ending was the 16th, and I'm pretty sure their check run is the 21st. Yep, there we go. So let's go back in. Sorry about that. What happens when I click too many buttons. So let's go back to edit, and let's just go to 1,800, and then you could put a note on it as to why, and you can have that note attached to the change of the edit. Okay, so we changed 1,800. Let's click save. All right, so what's nice is it's as soon as you make that edit in the system, that adjustment, it's already reprocessed that check for you and changed the taxes and anything that needed to be changed here on that. You do need to click save, so make sure you click save here, not just back, and that actually saves the changes that were made. Okay, so what can I edit and what can't I edit on this screen? So we saw we can edit the earnings. You're going to be able to edit deductions. So if I come into health, family, employee, it took out 45, and maybe it should have taken out 50. Let's click on that line, and you'll simply come into here and hit the pencil and say it should have been 50. Save that. Okay, so there's the 50 there. The one thing you cannot edit here in this check screen is the 401k amount. So for example, if I click on that, you'll notice there's no detail button to go to, okay, because it will not let you edit the 401k amount. So for that one, actually, we'll come back to that in a second. So we can't edit the 401k, and we cannot at this time edit the tax on the fly. Okay, so those two items are going to be handled a different way. So we can edit the 401k, and we can edit the tax information. We can edit employer-based fringes. So I can come into here, and the same thing on the health. I can open that up right there, and that should have been 230, let's say. So you can change that. Okay, and I can't do the 401k or the tax as well. I can't edit that. Okay, so some stuff you'll be able to edit right on the screen here. Click save again, and then I'll click OK, and then I'll click back. Okay, so how do I edit some things that I can't do on the check and I haven't approved the check yet? Well, the other scenario would be that if it's not approved, you can recalculate. So if you can recalculate, means you can go into the employee setup and change some things there. So let's go and do that. So we'll click on the employee, and we'll get to the employee screen. I'm going to sort by pay group. I like doing that because it brings my salary people right on top, and there's Doug. Let's go ahead and click on Doug here. So let's say we did need to change that 401k. So I can go over to here to my pay modifiers, and I can go into 401k. I could do a couple things. I could make a particular new effective date by duplicating it and just do an effective and expiration date for that week. And then I can copy over the new one again. But in this case, I'm just going to go back and change it afterwards back. So you can see here, it is employee setup. It's set to take $1,000 out. And we'll say in this one, this week he asked if only 900 comes out. So we can change it here. So you could make a different effective date to show the history of it if you wanted to by duplicating it, or you can just override it and come back in and change it back afterwards. So we'll click save here. Okay. And some of the other things you can do here is, I can go to my federal withholding. I could take some extra withholding out here if I needed to adjust the status or maybe change them to single. And for your state, you can also extra withholding out here as well. If you need to make some adjustments on taxes, some negative adjustments, what you can do is actually make a copy of one of the taxes that you're trying to adjust, and you could put it in as a flat tax and make the adjustment that way as well. But let's go back here. Let's save that. And now let's go back into the employee, into the check screen. So we'll go to payroll checks. Yeah, the other thing that you can do too with Intacct and being, you can have as many tabs open as you want. Sometimes I'll leave the check screen open and then I'll have a second tab on the employee record. So I could just jump back and forth. But in this case, we're going to pull them up. We'll grab the 21st. We'll click view checks. And now what I'll need to do is select Doug. And then over in actions, I can just say recalculate. And when I say recalculate, click OK. Now if I go into the detail, you'll notice the 401k is now 900. Okay. And then, we can do the same thing on the employer side and things like that. But there you go. That's how you make those deductions. And again, this is if the check has not been approved. Now, if I approve this check, so let's go to Actions, Approve. And at that point, I realize, oh, I need to change something. If I go into Enter Checks, you'll notice, let's go back to that health. I can click on the details, but you'll see what's gone here is that pencil. So once it's been approved, that locks that check and there's no more editing that can be done on that check record. So same thing for my salary, that's gone. So you lose that ability to edit. So the best scenario is do not approve those checks until you're certain that the payroll is correct and no more adjustments are needed. Now, if you need to do adjustments still, you do have the ability, after it's been approved, to void that check. So I can click on that employee and I can go to Actions. You'll notice I can't do recalculate anymore, but I still can void it. Okay, so you can still void that check. It's not going to create any general ledger entries or anything like that because we haven't posted it yet. So I can do the same thing I did on that delete earlier. I can come in and put the time back to pending, put the time back to void, or put the time to approve. So notice what you can't do at this point is delete the record, delete the time. So somebody approved this check. So the theory is here is, look, somebody wanted this check, it's good. So if we do any editing, we want an audit trail of the edit at this point. So what is nice is you can set it to approved. So that means I don't have to go and reapprove the time. I can just set it back to approve, void it as of my same date. So let's do the 21st. That's what the check date was, right? And I can say void that check. Okay. So now if I refresh my screen here, you'll notice this is how it's going to show in the system. So you can do it, but now as far as what data is in the system is, you're going to see an in and out at that point. But you'll see here that you have the original and then you have the void for it. Okay. So at that point now, because this was an auto salary, I could just reprocess that auto salary for Doug. And that was 16th. And generate. Okay. So now that adds Doug's check as it was originally back in the system. And now we can take it back from step one and make adjustments because it's not approved. Okay. So you can do that as well. So next we'll talk about what happens if I need to make some adjustments to some totals and some amounts after checks have been posted. I just need to get it right for the following week or for year end or for beginning balances. And that's going to be using the function in payroll called import adjustments. And we'll talk about that next. So in the system, you have under payroll, you do have an import in the payroll module functionality under all, and you can click on imports. Now you'll notice there's a lot of things you can do here, but one of them is what's called payroll adjustments. Okay, so you have the ability to import payroll adjustments, and that can just be simply gross and net pay amounts. That can be the taxes, that can be the amount-based pay modifiers, hour-based pay modifiers, 401k. So any type of adjustment you need to make, you can do that in here. Now, where you find that file, the easiest thing to do is either talk to your Sage Intacct business partner, so contact us and we can get the template over to you. You can also go into the community. So if you go into the payroll community under help.cloudpayrollengine.com, it's a very useful and user-friendly help system. You can simply type in the search, import adjustments. And if I do that, you'll see some topics on that subject, but I'm looking for the one that says import file payroll adjustments. So if I click on that, that's going to give me a little explanation of what I can do here. And then you'll notice at the bottom, it's going to show you an Excel file, which is basically your template that you can use. So you can download that payroll adjustments template right from here. And then once it downloads, I'm going to open it up with you here. Now, this is what we use during deployment to bring in payroll beginning balances. If you're not starting payroll in a calendar year, this is the template that we'll use to bring those balances in. And the main reason is we can do this import without affecting the general ledger. So keep that in mind here, that the adjustments that you're doing here through import is not going to affect general ledger. So if there's anything adjustment that you make that needs to affect general ledger, you're going to want to do a adjusting journal entry in general ledger to reflect that change in there as well afterwards. So keep that in mind. Now, the other way to do that, if you did need to affect general ledger, is to make the adjustments, for that employee either via second check or make the adjustments in the next week's check as well, and then the payroll. The GL will take care of itself there. But in this scenario, they break out this import file in multiple tabs. Okay, so we're in the adjustment tab here, and they give you a great example of each column and if it's required or not and what needs to be in there. But basically, depending on the tabs that you're in, they're going to also kind of correlate with, we go back to that import screen, the steps of the import screen. So number 1 is the first tab, number 2 is the second tab, number 3 is third, and so forth. So you're going to get the ability to go through each one of these tabs during your import and pick and map which ones you're importing to. So the first tab is pretty straightforward. This is going to be considered your earnings, your gross pay amount, your net pay amounts. So I can come into here, for example, and it does want an identifier. Typically, it's just a consecutive number. Recommend kind of labeling it based on what you're doing. So this is beginning balances. So year-to-date 1, year-to-date 2, year-to-date 3. You might want to use an identifier like ADJ if you're making weekly adjustments or something like that. You can do that as well. But, it's straightforward. Hey, I need this employee. I need this to be the check date. Here's the gross amount. There's the net pay. Is it salary earnings? So this line here is salary, auto salary. So I don't need to fill anything in over here. If it's an hourly employee and you need to adjust maybe hour types, maybe they were coded to just a wrong hour type. It should have went to hourly, not regular. We have 2 different IDs for it. It's the same rates and all that stuff, but you can do an in and out here, minus 180 and a positive 180. So you can do these types of adjustments all right here. And that might be all you need. You aren't required to fill the rest of this out. It might just be an adjustment that's to move around hours or put in some earnings, and you just make the adjustments on that screen right there. Now, if you did need to adjust taxes, I can click on the taxes tab. What you need to do is you want to make sure that your identifier, whatever you use, matches up. So you'll notice here, year-to-date 1 and employee 1 matches up year-to-date 1 and employee 1. That's how it knows to put it all together on that, quote, adjustment check, okay? So you need to correlate those. Now, if you're only doing one employee, it's easy. If you're doing an adjustment like year-to-date balances, then you want to really make sure this is connected in the system. Okay, so that's really what, the key is for that. It's representing your check in a sense. Then you have your tax identifier. Now, you don't have drop lot lists here, so you want to make sure whatever your identifiers are in all cases match up with what they're called over in your Intact Construction Payroll System. If it needs to be a tax category identifier, and you can see up here, it's not required. It must exist if it's a tax category. So it kind of helps you out here. Like this right here, common adjustment might be maybe it was coded to the incorrect workers' comp code and you want to just do an in and out for that. So you could put in the classification code here as well, 5506, and then put in negative. So you can use it for that. And then the columns you need to fill out here depend on the adjustments you're making, taxable earnings, taxed earnings, and then you'll see deduction, taxable hours, but you're really trying to get to these amounts right here. Employee amount, adjustment of $7, employer amount, $7. Now it could be a negative as well. So keep that in mind. You can make negative adjustments if too much was taken out or something like that. So you can do that in here. And it's the same theory going all the way through now. So they break out, when you're setting up your pay modifiers, if you remember, there's three types of pay modifiers. There's amount-based, hour-based, and 401k. They break them out in 3 separate imports. So you just have to make sure you're lined up correctly with, all right, my amount-based pay modifiers. Here they are here. Very straightforward. Tie out the adjustment identifier with the employee, the ID for the pay modifier, and the amount of the adjustment. And same thing for hours-based. So hours-based is same columns, but now because it's hours, you can also reflect the hours and the amount for that calculation on there. And then 401k is broken out separately. And the way 401k works is you can set up one 401k to handle all the different options, pre-tax, after-tax, Roth, all that stuff. So you'll notice in this, if you have them set up that way, we just have one line, pay modifier. And then here's the pre-tax, pre-tax catch-up, pre-tax match. Even the matchings are here as well. So it's all one line. And then if they had a Roth portion, after-tax match. Okay? So you could fill all that in there. So this template becomes very useful, especially for beginning balances, but also to go through and make our adjustments and imports in the system. So let's do this. I'm going to switch over the employee ID because now we'll just go in and hit the import and then it should fail, but you'll at least get to see how it looks. So basically when you're ready, after you save that file, you will click right in here under imports, payroll adjustments, import rows. And it will ask you to upload the file. So you'll click that file. And you go to wherever you saved it. I'm just going to grab the payroll adjustments file. And it will go and read that file and say, all right, well, there's multiple tabs. What tab do you want to use for this step? We want to use the adjustment tabs. Click continue. And then the first time you go in here, it's going to map this spreadsheet out. So technically, you don't even have to use the template. Because when you first come into here, you could tell the system which columns go with what, and they can be completely independent of the names of the columns. As long as you know where they go to, you're going to come into here and you're going to map them with your spreadsheet. And the system, once you do it the first time, will confirm the mapping and remember the import for the next time. Okay, so if you see here, my column headings, nice thing about using the template is the column headings are identical. It maps them automatically for you. And all I need to do is click review and it'll go grab the data for me. Now, when you get to that point, it's going to show you all of the data that was brought in for that tab, and anything with issues and errors, it's going to highlight based on, a red box here. And you'll notice invalid identifier because I don't have those employee IDs in my system and I don't have that hour type in my system. So what's really cool about this, if you have a lot of lines here, you can say only show rows with problems and it'll show those 2 rows. But if it's all good, you'll get no rows there. So you kind of quickly know we're good to go. In this scenario, what's really nice is you can do 2 things. You can go and cancel out of here, go edit the template again, and then re-import it. Or if you know the issues and it's 1 line, you can just click on it here and make it correct. So whatever that employee number should be, I can just change it here and type in whatever I want. Now it's still going to fail until it gets it right. Same thing for hours type. Like I believe this is RE. Let me see. Can't remember now, but I think it was REG. Let's try that. Yep. And now that changed. Okay. So you can do that. Once it's good, you'd click continue and it would import in your file. And then it would let you click save. And then it would take you to the next step. So then it would pop up and say, all right, let's do the tax part now. And then when it gets to the tax part, it's going to pop up this same screen again, because now it's going to say, what tab do you want to use for the taxes? So each time you'll have a chance to pick your tab and say, all right, I want to use taxes. And now this one's not going to like it. Now you see how the mapping doesn't find it this time because it's really the wrong tab. So you could click back and go, okay? But basically what that's going to do is once you're through that, at the very end, you do need to hit step 6 here. You need to say save records. There'll be a button that comes up here that says save records, and that will update all of the adjustments to those employees from that adjustment payroll. Very powerful tool, works fantastic for beginning balances. Use it when you need to use it in the system. Okay, so the next section we'll get into is how do we make some PTO adjustments? Now, if it's related to accruals as far as vacation taken and things like that, you could definitely do it with the payroll adjustment screen that we were just in. But there's also a nice function within the employee setup screens where you can do some PTO adjustments again. So we'll go into there next. So I'm going to go into payroll and then the employee screen. Okay, so once I'm in the employee screen, I'm going to click on Robert Jones. He's an hourly employee, and depending on your PTO accruals and how you have them set up, whether they're given at the start of a period or if they accrue per hour, your look may be different here. But you'll notice on the last tab on the employee, there's a paid time off balances tab. And if you click on that, you'll see this is an employee that's accruing vacation accruing hours as they work hours. So you'll see all the accrual entries that have been going on here and all the history of it. You can filter on it. You can do a recap of their history for the year if you want. There's a lot of things you can do on this screen here. You can also date base it. So let's say, what was it as of August 31st? And you'll see here it's the same amount. But if they took a vacation, today, as of, you'll see the balance of it. But what's really handy is you'll notice here for vacation accrual, he has 14.247 hours accrued. And I don't know, something got out of the whack, or, we messed up the increase or something like that. He should have 15 hours, let's say. So you can come into here and you're going to see a very handy button over here on the right called Add Adjustment. And this feature here, Add Paid Time Off Adjustment, you can select which paid time off type. So this demo environment has 2 different types of PTO. He only has the vacation one. And basically what type of adjustment you need to make. Okay, so if you notice from the help icon here, you can make a positive or negative hours adjustment. So I can say if it should be minus 0.247 to get it back to 14, we can. Or in this scenario, we're going to do an hour adjustment, get it up to 15.247. So you can make any type of adjustment you need to make here and provide when you need that adjustment made. Let's say we're going to up this and fix this as of August 31st. And then we can put a note, increase was incorrect, fixed now going forward. Okay, so we would save the adjustment. You'll get a transaction record on there right here, 831-1. It was a manual entry, and you'll notice you get the note right there as well. So this is fantastic little feature. You can go and make it correct, run your reports on this next pay stub. It'll show the correct accrued hours and so forth. So this is very flexible here and definitely, really enhances the PTO calculations that are in Sage Intacct Construction Payroll to begin with. But if you need to make adjustments, that's where they are again in the employee file under the paid time off balance, add adjustments. So that's going to conclude our payroll adjustment session for today. Hope you found it helpful. And if there's any other questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to us, comment, send us an email at help@bangernick.com, and look forward to talking with you in the next sessions. Thank you.